okay if we're streaming live or not?
Hmm?
Ask Alice to see if she sees us on Facebook.
Could you see us
Oh,
on
I'll check Facebook. Let's see. Chips. Chips and Salsa Show. Oh, it says that it's live. Let's see. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not gonna jinx it. I'm not gonna put it up. Oh, that's good, Alice. And then
I'll turn the volume down.
we're gonna be on YouTube and Rumble later on this evening when he edits it.
Okay,
Just
here
so
we
you
go.
know.
3, 2.
Welcome to your Chips and Salsa show. This is Don Jorge. And with me, of course, I have from New Mexico, my previous co-host, which is she runs her own show in New Mexico with Zeke Rodriguez, Alice Lara. And she
I am from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Thank you, Don Jorge. And just, I'm going to make apologies for Zeke Rodriguez. He couldn't be here. I think he kind of has so much going on. When I called him, he was out in the desert doing his job. But that's okay. We'll make do.
Yes. Today is kind of, well, maybe we'll make it next week or the week after our Love Fest where we can have Zeke and maybe Martin from Texas join us. Today, we're honored to have Jerry Sheridan, a candidate for sheriff, Maricopa County, and he'll be talking about his past, his future, his present, and his future with Maricopa County, and it's going to be a great show. And Alice will be with us on Zoom. And as you can see on the screen, we're live on Facebook. So all the chipsters, hello. Welcome to the Chips and Salsa Show. This will be aired also on YouTube and Rumble later on after Eric does his magic with it. And but right now, all our notifications have gone out on Facebook. So we have a nice audience watching us. And they're going to hear from Jerry Sheridan momentarily. Welcome. And then Martin is not going to be on the show today because he has other things as he's doing, but he's going to join us probably in about a week or so. We're going to try to get him on the show so we can have a real love fest. We have Eric Williamson, our producer, director. He's in the background there, and he may show his face here. Come on. Show yourself. There he is. Eric Williamson.
Eric, put your face back up there. You need to say he is an award-winning podcast
Yeah,
producer.
he just won an award nationwide.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, woo! For podcast of the year, podcaster of the year in Las Vegas when he was doing the show for Meet Out there. So congratulations, Eric. You deserve it. You had some other guys running against you, and you beat them all out, and it takes a lot.
Team effort.
So he is the podcaster of the year. So podcaster, right? That would be the term. Of course, everybody knows Alice is in New Mexico now with her show from a different studio. So they just aired their podcast on, I believe it was Rumble and YouTube, right? It just came out. And so I'll be sharing it to our Facebook page later on today. Very good show. It turned out really great. They have a great studio out there. What's the name of the studio? You want to introduce the name of the studio?
You know, we just started. This is our second program from there. And it's good folks. It's Joey and Haley, their husband and wife team, Garza, Garza. And they have Oregon Mountain Productions. And it's a great studio. Do some good work, and we're kind of having fun with the show, getting it started. Hopefully you guys can come down soon and visit us, and we can do a show from there. But we really appreciate it. Please follow us on Rumble and YouTube. And what we do is we record the show Monday afternoons, and then it's uploaded by Tuesday morning. So like if you listen to today's show, we're referencing the Iowa caucus. But, you know, there was a big development that happened, and we actually kind of talk a little bit about that, but we didn't know what was going to happen at that point. So thank you for mentioning that, George. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that, of course, you know, Trump won over 50% of the vote, which I think that was their goal to get over the 50, and he did 51%, I believe. and now he's out to New Hampshire. I believe they're having a rally out there with Vic Ramasamy. Ramasamy.
I have to tell you though, real quick, I was watching a program earlier, and so Trump got 51%, right? And then I think it was DeSantis and Haley,
Right.
Nikki came in next. Well, Trump spent like 16 million, and those guys, DeSantis and Nikki, spent twice that much, like 34 and 35 million dollars for that one caucus.
For that one
So
caucus.
that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think he already knew because he was ahead nationwide anyway. I think he already knew. He was just. I think they were just. His campaign was hoping that they would go over that 50% threshold just to show the nation that he is the number one choice. I just heard something that they were saying today that they wished that the other two dropped out and kind of unified the party, but that'll take a little while because people have egos and they.
Well, did you see what one of the news outlets did? And they said that they were not going to broadcast any more of his speeches live, that they will show you what we think you need to see. Oh, wow. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. They don't want.
Does that sound like communist China to you, or the Soviet Union?
I know that doesn't. You know,
Terrible.
to me, people
Terrible.
know what Trump is capable, what he says, what he does. He served as president. If they don't want to put him on, it's going to come out anyway. I mean, I know they didn't want to put him on yesterday, but it came out anyway, so it's going to come out.
All they're doing is denying themselves a larger viewership.
Yeah.
Because people would watch their station more if they actually did that.
Exactly.
They're like nanny boo boo, but they're it's crazy. But you have to think that what did Vivek get? Like 7%, I think, maybe 7 or 8%. And you have to think that most of that would have gone to Trump. So actually, Trump was probably getting closer to the 60% margin.
Yep.
But I like to think about it that way.
Yeah, and I've always been for Trump. I always will be. I wear the hats. You know, he'll be our 47th president.
I'm gonna chime in here
But,
because I think Trump took 98 out of 99 counties.
98.
Right.
Yeah, 98.
Right.
Wow, that's a sweep.
Yeah,
That
98.
is a sweep.
Yeah, it is a sweep. And Sheridan's gonna do that when he.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, man.
Sheridan, introduce yourself.
So my name's Jerry Sheridan, and I'm a candidate for the Maricopa County Sheriff here for the 2024 election. So I've been working hard at it for a year already. I filed my paperwork a year ago this week, and I've been running hard and getting out there and probably put 15, 20,000 miles on my truck and just getting out and talking to everybody. And I ran into Jorge at the meeting on Saturday, and he invited me to come here, and I was so happy until he told me that Alice was going to be in New Mexico, and I'm like, what?
I know.
You know, because you guys had me on your show twice during the 2020 race.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. It was like coming home a little bit.
And the current sheriff has already quit. He quit Friday, and so who takes up the vacancy until the election?
That's a good question. A lot of people have been asking me that lately.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
The Board of Supervisors has two options. They can keep the chief deputy, who's currently there, and put him as interim, which they did to fill the vacant seat. Or they can appoint someone to the remainder of Penzone's term. But they would have to appoint somebody, and they are asking for applications. The deadline is this Friday. Now, people ask me, how come, have you filed your application yet? And I'm like, no, it's a partisan race, so it has to be a Democrat, and I am not going to change my party affiliation because I have to look myself in the mirror every morning, you know, and be proud of who I see looking back. That's the way I live. And so that's why.
Jerry, what do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to appoint someone or just let it ride till? Because elections
this year, right?
It's anybody's guess at this point. I don't know.
Remember David Gonzalez was going to run, and they talked him out of running behind the scenes because they didn't want him to interrupt Sheriff Joe Arpaio's chance. And
I remember that.
and David Gonzalez, he's already retired. He'd be a good person to nominate because he wouldn't run because he's not going to run, but he would. He's a good placeholder.
Republican.
And he's a Republican.
He's a Republican. That's the problem.
Republican.
And that's right, because you have to be a Democrat.
Well, and the story about David is he's got a really lucrative job up in Flagstaff, where he was from, originally when he worked for the Highway Patrol.
Oh, okay.
And, the sheriff, his salary is set by the Arizona legislature, which is $101,000 a year. And so to run such a large organization for that little money, nobody really wants it.
Yeah. We interviewed him, and I like him. I like him as
Good guy.
He's a very good guy.
Yeah.
So, you want to tell us about your past? What do you,
Okay. Well, for those people that have never seen or heard of me before, I was born and raised in New York City. My dad and a few of my uncles were New York City cops, and so when I was 18, my dad retired, and he moved the family here to Arizona. And I met a deputy sheriff, talked to him for about an hour. He loved the sheriff's office. He loved his job. And I thought, that's the kind of place I want to spend my career, because I knew I was going to get into law enforcement. Had we stayed in New York, I would have been a New York City cop, right? So I didn't even know what a deputy sheriff was. You grow up in Queens, you don't know you never saw a deputy sheriff. So I joined the sheriff's office a few months later at 18 in January 1977 as a reserve deputy sheriff. And back then you could be a sworn officer at the age of 18. Now it's 21. So I did that for a year and a half. I got a job working in the jail as a detention officer. I did that for a little while, and then I became a deputy sheriff in February of 1979. And so I spent about 16 years in a patrol car. I got promoted to corporal, sergeant, lieutenant. Then I got promoted to captain. And one day, Sheriff Arpaio was the sheriff. And he says, "Hey, Jerry, you ready for a change?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Sheriff?" And he says, "Oh, I want you to work for me in Gila Bend." And I'm like, "Well, I live in Fountain Hills. That's a long way." But I thought, you never say no to the boss. So he said, "No," he says, "I want to promote you to patrol bureau chief," which I was responsible for the law enforcement function for the entire county. And if you know anything about Maricopa County, it's 9,224 square miles. It's bigger than 5 states, and a couple of them combined. It's a big place. We didn't have 4.6 million people like we do now, but we had like 3 million people back then, and it was a big job. I did that.
What year was that?
That was in 1995. So I did that for a few years, and sheriff comes to me and he goes, "Hey, you ready for a change?" I look at him. I said, "What, are you going to send me to Gila Bend now?" He says, "No, Jerry, I want you to run the jails for me." And I guess I had a look on my face. I don't know what it was. But he says, "You worked in the jail, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, Sheriff, 20 years ago for about 6 months." And he says, "That's okay. I like the way you do things." And the look he saw on my face was fright, to be honest with you, because that was 1998 or so, where the taxpayers had just voted themselves almost a $1 billion jail tax to build 2 new jails, an infrastructure, training center, hire thousands of officers, and in typical bureaucratic governmental way, none of the work had been done. They got the money. Now what do we do with it? And so that responsibility fell on my shoulders. Wow. And, I was a deputy sheriff working law enforcement side. Now I'm going to do this. But you know what? That was the best thing that he could have done for me, because today, sitting here, the Maricopa County Sheriff Jail is 75% of the sheriff's office. It's 80% of the budget. And I know how to run that place. because I did for 12 years. And it was the best education anybody could get to run for sheriff, because a lot of people run for sheriff, like the previous sheriff. He was a sergeant with a city police department. They don't know anything about, they don't have a jail. They use our jail. So, so it really set me up really well. And then I did that for 12 years. And then he came to me one day and he said, Jerry, he says, I need some help. I want you to be my chief deputy. And so I was the chief deputy for 6 years.
Chief deputy does what?
The chief deputy runs the entire sheriff's office. Okay, you have the sheriff and you have the chief deputy, and the chief deputy, everybody reports to the chief deputy. And, you know, I'm not going to say the sheriff's a figurehead, but a lot of sheriffs allow their chief deputies to run the daily operations. I can tell you one thing, when I become the sheriff, that's not going to be the way I'm going to do things, because I'm a hands-on person. I will share those duties with my chief deputy. And we will make it a team effort and get out there. There's no way that I'm going to sit around and just politic and go meet people and do all that stuff and shake hands when there's real business that needs to get done. I'm going to be very much involved in that.
That is fantastic. You did that for 12 years?
That's it. I ran the jails for 12 years, and then I was the chief deputy for 6.
For 6.
Yeah.
Alice.
It's just kind of a perfect time for me to ask this question. And I don't think it'll deviate from your story too much. So right now in Doñana County, where I live, we have Sheriff Kim Stewart. And just recently, she appointed an undersheriff, which I think is the same thing that you're talking about.
Right.
And the big problem is, this is a former city council person who has really no knowledge of the sheriff's office. So it's kind of like a political, to me, it's not right.
Yeah.
But I had really never heard the term undersheriff before. So it's the same thing, right?
It's used interchangeably among most sheriffs. So there's about 3,000 sheriff's offices in the country. Arizona has 15, by the way. I don't know. Do you know how many New Mexico has? They have big counties there in New Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, I should know that. I'm sorry that I didn't.
Well, that's okay.
Lots of good sheriffs, though, out here. We do.
But
That's not Border Patrol, right?
no, it's not the Border Patrol. But yes, the term sheriff, undersheriff, chief deputy, it depends on the organization. Now, L.A. County, which is the largest sheriff's office in the country, they have an undersheriff and chief deputies, but they need that level of administration to run things. They're so big and it's so complicated there that they have extra ranks that the other sheriffs don't.
We don't need that here yet.
No. You know, I had always thought when I was the chief deputy, boy, we could use 2 of them, because the sheriff's office is so big, so complicated. We do a lot of things there, and I will save a position to see if we can do it with one, and if we can't, then maybe we'll make another one.
You would get to, as a sheriff, when you get elected sheriff, then you get to appoint that person, right?
You get to a point.
Does it have to be sanctioned by anybody else?
No. The sheriff, matter of fact, the first sheriff I worked for was Jerry Hill, and that was back in 1977. And we had a chief deputy at the time that was a dentist. Right. So you talk about no prior law enforcement training, but again, things were simpler back then. Sheriff's office was a lot smaller, and the sheriff, Jerry Hill, he grew up in the sheriff's office, so he knew how to run it himself. He didn't. I don't know what he had Doc Baker doing, but that's. It's really up to the sheriff, and there's 5 positions that the sheriff can appoint people to, but the chief deputy is probably the most critical. A lot of people ask me, well, who's going to be your chief deputy? And I look at him and I said, I have no idea. I'm not even thinking about that. I need to win 2 elections before I can even start thinking the primary and the general.
And the general.
And then I'll start thinking about personnel.
I say that I did not know. George just informed me yesterday about Penzone stepping down, and we talked a little bit about that before the show. And of course, I was never a fan. I never voted for him when I lived there, and I wouldn't have voted for him again. But so I'm really excited that you're going to jump in. Has anybody already said they're going to be on the Democrat side that they want to run for office, or is that probably too soon?
Well, no one that I'm aware of yet has filed to run. So I don't know. Now I'm not naive enough to think, oh, this will be, whoever wins the Republican primary is going to be the next sheriff. You have to think that somebody is going to come out and run, right?
You think they'll bring somebody from a different state, maybe?
Well, you have to be a county resident.
Oh, you got to be a county resident.
So, and I think the residency requirement for voting now, I don't know this for sure, is 6 months before you could register to vote, right? I don't know. I should know the answer to that, but I think they just can't bring somebody in. And then, the deadline to file your signatures, which is a big part of being a candidate, is to collect the signatures, is the first week in April. So the clock's ticking right now.
And so how are you with your signatures? Is it looking good?
Very good.
Very good.
Very
and
good.
You're going to go over the amount.
You always want to go over, way over.
Yep.
In case somebody wants to challenge your signatures. But I am very happy with where we're at now, and we'll still collect them until the day before we have to turn them in. And people can sign this time around in 2024. It's the first time in the sheriff's race that people can go online to the state and the state Secretary of State, Secretary of State, and sign my petition on there.
And is it like clean elections or no?
No.
Just, I know my signature's on your petition, so
Well, thank you.
I'm in the.
And Alice, sorry, but you can't do it. This isn't Chicago.
But I can ask my friends. You know what?
Yes, that you can do.
She's got a large reach. So she used to get a lot of signatures for a lot of candidates.
Yep.
And Alice was good at it. And
Well, all they need to do is have their driver's license, go to the Secretary of State's office, and find my race and sign my. It takes 3 minutes to get it done.
wow.
Jerry, I want to ask you. So, we're not. Maricopa County is not at the border, obviously, but you are right there, just kind of like Las Cruces. Las Cruces, we have 2 interstates that intersect, and that's the same thing that happens in Phoenix. So that gives a lot of opportunity for criminals and bad things to happen. So should you be, when you are elected, what kind of cooperation, engagement will you have with the sheriffs down south and, the border situation, because it's horrible, so terrible.
It's probably a lot worse than we think right now, and it is horrific, right? So I'll tell you one of the things that I did do when I was the chief deputy. I consider our border I-8 down by Gila Bend, the Vico Valley. It's a straight shot from I-10 down to the Mexican border through the Tohono O'odham Reservation and some federal land. And it's about 65 miles. There's no hills, mountains, nothing in the way. So the drug cartels are using that as a lane to smuggle drugs and people. So in 2010, when I took over as the chief deputy, I got together with our special investigations commander, and we talked about what we could do to help curb the drugs coming in and the human smuggling coming in. And we put up a plan where we got a few teams of detectives. We trained them very, very, very well using former Delta Force. If you're familiar with military, they're the elite of the elite of the elite, and trained our deputies how to do surveillance and desert warfare and that kind of thing. And so we went out there. They went out. I didn't go out there. It was so successful that in 6 months, they were the leading team confiscating drugs. And they got awards almost every year for what they did. And unfortunately, the new sheriff came in 2017 and he disbanded them.
Wow.
So as of right now, and this should scare everybody that lives in Maricopa County, or you know what, the United States, there is nobody out there stopping, disrupting the drug cartels. And because the Border Patrol wasn't even out there until we started working. Then the Border Patrol came because they saw how successful we were and what was really going on out there. And so, as soon as we left, they were gone too. And with all the problems down at the border, they've got their hands full anyway. And don't forget, Maricopa County, if it's not number one, it's usually in the top 3 of stolen vehicles. Where do you think they're going? They're going south that way. So we were getting stolen vehicles going south, and guns and carloads of money. It is just crazy out there. And as of today, there's nobody out there stopping this. So when I become the sheriff, we are going to reinstitute the drug interdiction team, and we're going to get them out there and start to make a difference in this county.
Doesn't the sheriff department have a pact with other sheriff departments?
Well, that's the other part, Alice.
We learned from what was that sheriff that we did the rally for? I don't think he's still sheriff. Pinell County.
Oh, you're thinking about in Pinell County, right? The one that was sheriff before that had to step down.
Yeah, we did a.
Gay one? He was gay. He was gay, and all the women were in love with him.
Yeah. Well, he turned out. Yeah, he turned out to be. But
remember him? Shaved head.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of his name?
Because we're all having a mental blank on it.
But he was the one that told us at the meeting at the rally that they had some kind of a pact.
Oh well, here's how it works, okay? And just in case some of the people watching don't understand the role of the sheriff, it's very simple. The Arizona Constitution establishes the position of sheriff. Arizona's revised statute 11441 sets out the duties and responsibilities, and one of those in there, it says that one sheriff can call upon another for help. That's what you guys are talking about.
Yes.
And so if the sheriff in Graham County, Greenlee County, Pinell County, which he wouldn't, but Pinell County, or Cochise is the, in Arizona right now, it's really the focal point, and Pinell, in Tucson. So all of that is going on, and the sheriff can call the sheriff of any other county and say, hey, Jerry, I need some help down here. Can you send some people? So, one of the other things that I need to do when I become sheriff is build that posse up, because we had 1,800 posse members when I left. Great, dedicated, trained, gone through the hiring process, spend their own money and hours, and some would donate more than $2,080, which, if you know, that's a work year for one individual. And so now there's 40 or less. So what I could do is send our posse along with our deputies to help down at the border. I went down the border. I took a couple photographs, snapshots with my cell phone, but I went down there by Sassabee with some folks that knew what was going on, just because I wanted to see for myself. I didn't make a big deal about it. I didn't go online. I didn't put a video up on my Facebook when I went out there in June, because I'm not a border county sheriff, but I want to know what in the heck is really going on out there. And it is crazy. And it's gotten worse since I've been down there. And what I worry about as a law enforcement officer all my adult life, is who are coming through, terrorists, anarchists, coming through, and are they planning something? another terrorist attack, something like that's what scares the heck out of me. And I have two grandchildren, and they're awesome. I mean, we watched a football game last night, or I tried to anyway, and we all three of us sat in the same chair, and I was in heaven. And those are the kids and everybody else's children I worry about for the future.
Yeah, because if terrorists were going to do something, it wouldn't be like Israel, because Israel had supposedly the border wall and stuff, and they still came by. But here, they could come by, and I mean, they could attack us like
It would be very easy for them to do
terrible. And I'm glad that you guys think about those kind of things, because we need a good sheriff that could take the helm, and we know we have a line of protection, because you have other protection. You have the FBI, CIA, you have everything. As a sheriff, you have resources that you can go to, but it's scary.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things that you need to be concerned about when you think about your sheriff. And unfortunately, people don't when they vote for people. Oh, is this person look nice or not? Or they smile enough, or they don't smile and so that's how people vote. They don't do a lot of the research on the individuals they're voting for. And that's sad. Especially for the sheriff, as a constitutional officer, the primary function of the sheriff is to protect, number one, people's freedoms and liberties, right? God gave us freedom as human beings when we were born, and our founding fathers gave us a liberty in this country. And there's a lot of people that want to take those away from us now. And it's the sheriff's role to stop that when it occurs by the federal government. And in a close second is to keep people safe. And that's what we do. That's why we fight the drugs. 4 people a day in Maricopa County die on average from fentanyl overdoses. Sheriff needs to do something about that for the people in this county. And so all these things come into play when you look at hiring a new sheriff. And then the other major function is, can this person do the job? Does this person have the experience to do the job? And with the previous sheriff, he didn't, and it showed. And so I spent 40 years there, like I explained, and I was in a leadership position for 33 of those years. And 20 of those years, I was in executive position. But I don't want people listening now to think, oh, I got promoted from behind the desk. I spent 16 years in a patrol car, too. So I've had both sides experience. And running the jail, like I said earlier, is probably the thing that really sets me apart from anybody that would ever want to run for this position.
What do you think about 10 cities? I mean, I know that's a touchy subject with some people, but sometimes, if done the right way, it can be productive.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk for hours on this issue, right? But I'll try and give the 5-minute dissertation on Tent City. Tent City was very effective with people. One of my biggest supporters spent 30 days in Tent City, and he told me, he said, Jerry, he said, had I not spent 30 days in Tent City, I'd probably be dead by now. And he said, but you know what? I'm married. He brought his kids. I have my own business. We're successful. And it's because Tent City made me realize that I shouldn't be out there doing what I was doing. And vast majority, and I know this because I walked around with the ACLU and all these advocates that wanted to shut Tent City down. They wanted to talk to the inmates, and so we let them in. Go ahead. I would say 80 to 90% of those inmates would rather be in that tent than stuck in a locked cell. Yeah. And I know Sheriff Joe, he loved to make a big deal about how miserable it is out there, but it really wasn't, because everybody worked in Tent City. They worked in the kitchen. They prepared the food for the inmates. They prepared 30,000 meals a day, and we did it with inmate labor. And so they got to eat really well. They got the best food. They got to eat as much as they wanted. The day shift was out of the heat, and the graveyard shift that was in the heat, they could go in the day room. They could stand under the shower all day long if they wanted to. Sheriff Joe didn't tell people that because, he wanted to make it look like it was, worse than it really was. And when Penzone came in, he had a blue ribbon committee that Grant Woods, he's since passed away, Grant Woods headed that up. And I know because people that I know went around with that team, and the inmates said the same thing that they did all the other times when I was there to listen to them, and that they liked the place, but they shut it down anyway. And I think it was just because, it was our Pios thing.
And he had
Success
animals.
story.
He had animals there too, right? Horse.
Oh, yeah. Oh, let me finish because it's important to know. In Tent City, every year we needed to get a special use permits because they're tents in the city of Phoenix. They're not permanent structures from the fire marshal. So it got more difficult as the city became more left and more Democrats. And Bethelda Williams, who worked for me for a number of years, she was the mayor of Phoenix. So I actually called her a couple of times and said, Bethelda, I need a little help with the fire marshal. And we were able to get it. But now that everything's gone, I don't know if I'll be able to bring tents back, but I have an idea. I'm not telling you in public because somebody will steal it. It's my idea, but we're going to have a similar type housing for first level offenders. And that's really what Tent City, the misdemeanor, low level, first time offenders, to teach them a lesson. And it worked. And I know people that went to Tent City for drunk driving, and they don't drink and drive anymore. It taught them a lesson. They don't want to go there. And that's all it was. It wasn't there to punish them and make them. It was just to say, hey, you do the crime, you got to do the time, and it's not fun in the tents.
What about the animals?
There are two things. Can I ask a couple questions, George?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, first of all, I want to ask you, are you planning to steal the tents from the homeless? Is that where you're going to get the tents? Huh? No.
Did you ever go down there and walk through the tents? I know those tents were unusable. It was
Not even for
No.
offenders, first offenders.
no.
Well, I was going to ask you though, and I was a big fan of Sheriff Joe. Sheriff Joe's been on our program, and we just love him. So many good things, and because he had good people working for him as well too. Are there other sheriffs in the nation that do Tent City at all? Because that was a pretty novel program.
I don't know specific. Probably not. I would go to a National Sheriff's Association meeting or something, and when they found out where I worked, they didn't like Sheriff Joe, and they didn't like Sheriff Joe because all their constituents were saying, well, why can't you do Tent City? Why don't you do things like Sheriff Joe? And I think they were jealous, right?
I think they were. It's a pink underwear too. They were jealous of. Yeah.
Right, well, yeah, that was his trademark, and
You're
and,
right. I
and
think you're
he
right.
was the first one to start the black and white stripes too, right? Remember we did that,
Yeah.
and I see
Chain
that
gang.
on TV all the time now,
The chain gang, right?
and the chain gang and all that. I want to bring back a lot of that stuff because the chain gang. I was there at a graduation of the chain gang, and we would go out and give the team, when they got done with their, I don't remember what it was, 30 days or something on the chain gang, for discipline, to get out of discipline so they could get back into general population. And we would hand them certificates. And so I was there one day and I saw this woman over there. She's crying, and I went over to her and I said, "What's the matter?" And she says, "This is the first thing I ever started and finished in my entire life." And I was like, yes, that's the lesson, right? So it's a great program.
Rehabilitation.
The media beat us up about it, and probably because Sheriff Joe liked to make it sound like it was grueling and 180 degrees in the tents.
But the chain gang did a service for the community too. They cleaned up.
Oh.
You know,
Yes.
and when you saw them on the side, it made you think twice about going to jail or
Right.
something because you thought, okay, I never want to be in a chain gang. But I mean, to me, that was novel. You don't never see it anymore. But I mean,
Well, that's because it's not there,
it's not there.
right?
Yeah, that was.
What else too, George? Talking about seeing them out there, and that's a good reminder. I mean, just if you're with your grandkids or your kids, and you can, that's a perfect example. You say, look, we don't want to be doing that.
Yep.
You know, that's
Right.
Yeah.
that's a good. That's out in the open.
But they're doing a service for the community too. They're cleaning up a highway or they're whatever they were doing. I thought it was a novel idea
Yeah.
as well as the tent city.
So you asked about the animals.
Yeah, the animals.
Okay, I don't want to ignore that question because that's right up there on my hit parade of things I need to do as the sheriff is to get the animal cruelty detectives back in and start investigating people that abuse animals. I mean, that's right up there, right behind making sure our kids in school are safe, right? So the issue with MASH was we needed to take these abused animals, hold them, their evidence. You know, not only are they, you know, dogs and cats and animals and horses and pigs and sheep and all that stuff that have been abused and tortured, but they're also evidence in the court. And so, you know, that's always the goal of the law enforcement is to prosecute somebody that has violated the law. And so that's where the concept of MASH came from. And again, Thelda Williams, she did a great job running that, designing that whole program. And she was a big animal advocate. And I am too. You know, I have a couple horses. You know, I've adopted horses in the past. I've rescued horses. I have a rescue dog. He's an 80-pound Airedale that I went all the way to Santa Fe, New Mexico to get him.
Wow.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah, and he's 80 pounds, and he sleeps right in the middle between Stacy and I every night, and he stretches out. And, you know, he is such a big part of the family, you know, and Stacy and I, we have 3 dogs, and we talk about this all the time about how can somebody abuse these loving, caring animals that I just don't get it. And so as your sheriff, this is going to be a big part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those people in jail.
And then there's some of the prisoners.
Sheriff, I'm sorry.
Okay.
George, I'm sorry.
Didn't some of
Go
the
ahead.
prisoners talk good about the job that they had of taking care of us?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got sidetracked a little bit there. Sorry. But the part of the program was we had the female inmates groom the dogs and cats, teach them how to groom dogs and cats, and we also got them jobs, right? That was part of the program. So when they got out of jail, they had a skill set on how to groom and take care of animals, work with the vet and all that. And these inmates got jobs when they got out. And if you know anything about recidivism, if you know anything about preventing crime, is the best way is to make sure they're employed when they get out of jail. And that program played a nice role in some people's lives in getting them straightened out.
Alice, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you is, which I was a huge fan of that, and I know Sheriff Joe and you guys now, your 3 dogs, are big proponents of dogs, pets,
Don't
you
forget
mean
don't
to
forget
tell me that-
don't forget horses too.
and horses. Yeah, all
Okay.
kinds of animals. I hadn't even thought about that. When you said evidence, sure, there's all kinds of
Horses
animals.
horses are sweet and they're like dogs and they have different personalities. I have 2 horses right now and they have 2 different personalities. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's cool. That's nice. I can see your posters now with you on top of the horse with your cowboy hat. Well, what I want to ask you is, are you telling me that the current sheriff, did he get rid of that program or it's just not as popular? Don't tell me he got rid of it.
Well, he got rid of the animal crimes detectives. There's nobody assigned to animal crimes specifically, okay? We had 4 detectives and a civilian employee. That's all they did was investigate animal cruelty cases. Because a lot of the police departments here in the Valley, matter of fact, right now, as far as last I knew was a couple weeks ago, nobody, no law enforcement agency in this county, and there's about 15 municipal police departments and the sheriff's office, have anybody dedicated to doing these major crimes. And it's abusing an animal, and the evidence you need to bring to court is a lot different than if you abuse an elder or someone else, your spouse or something, because there's a different level of, they call it mens rea, the body of the crime is different, and having to prove that is difficult and needs special training. And nobody's got it. And there was a case in Chandler, there was a case in Scottsdale, that the officers that responded and took the report didn't supply the county attorney's office with enough evidence, so they were not able to prosecute those crimes, and it took a while for the cities to go back. And it's simply because it's not that they don't want to do it, it's just they don't have trained people doing it.
We're blowing up the Facebook. People are commenting up the yin yang about you and the animal cruelty, how they respect you for that, and we need a new sheriff in Maricopa County.
Well, there's currently is no sheriff there, so let's make that happen.
Thank you, Mike Olson, Jamie Edwards, VJ, Elaine. I mean, these people are coming off the wall, and not only for the animal thing, but I've never had that this kind of response to one of our guests. I don't know if you could see that what's on the comment
right now, George. And I tell you what, too. Anybody that abuses animals, to me, it's really important to take care of this too, because I feel like that's a really future criminal. I mean, I don't know enough about law enforcement.
Well, I was just going to say that, Alice. Not only is it cruel to treat a dog that loves you unconditionally, or a cat. Well, I don't know. The cats love unconditionally. They're a little bit standoffish, right? But so I'll use the dog as an example, and I include cats just so the cat lovers out there don't think I'm being prejudiced. But loving a being that loves you unconditionally, even if you kick them and beat them and don't feed them, how could you do that? And people need to go to jail when they do. And statistically, it's proven time and time again, if you're a kid, you grew up pulling the wings off a fly, and then you graduate to start abusing dogs and cats and all that, you're going to grow up to hurt people. And some serial killers, very famous serial killers, started out just that way, and we need to stop it.
That was their experiment.
As Barney Fife would say, we need to nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud.
Nip it.
Yes.
Right?
This guy's asking. He says, "Please talk more about horse crimes." I don't know what that.
Well, we have, matter of fact, I have a big supporter of mine. She runs a very big horse rescue throughout the state. She's located here in Maricopa County. And usually it's an abandonment issue with horses, okay? Where they'll, when the economy went south, people couldn't afford to feed their horses. It costs about $150 a month in your own backyard to feed and care for your horse, per horse. And some people couldn't afford that. And so that's probably the number one issue. Some horses, people shoot them. I know somebody that ran for office, and he was a big horse lover, and somebody killed 2 of his horses, shot and killed 2 of his horses when he was running for a little town council position.
Take it out on innocent animals.
Yeah.
I have a gentleman here that says, this is, I won't say their name. I love the MASH unit. I would sneak over there every chance I got when I worked there. So I guess he was in Tent City, and he would sneak over to the park for
horse.
the animal.
Yeah, they don't have the horse and the large animal, like we actually had pigs there and turkeys and sheep and all that stuff. But as far as I knew, that was discontinued.
This one says, Jerry seems so pleasant and knowledgeable, something we haven't had for the past 7 years with Pinzone. I thought you would like to.
Well, I'll just say no comment. He's gone. I'm happy. I'm happy for the people that work there. I'm happy for the 4.6 million people that they're going to get a sheriff that's going to take care of business, no nonsense. And that's me, by the way.
I had somebody said that they worked for Jerry. He's one of the best I have ever worked for. Spent 22 years there and worked with him. That's Frank Ketch. You probably know.
Yeah, I know who Frank is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is amazing because you struck the nerve in the county with people that remember that. They remember
Yeah.
the good things that came out of protecting animals and working for a good sheriff's department. And hopefully you'll bring that back. And Chipsters, it's up to you to either donate to the campaign if you can, volunteer for the campaign. Do you have a website that you want to give our listeners?
Of course.
I have it here, but I was letting him.
I'll give him my web address now. But you didn't ask me why I'm running for sheriff.
Oh, why are you running?
Well, no. Ask me that after I give my web address. Okay, it's Sheridan SHERIDAN 4 sheriff 2024.com, and that's my website. You can go on there. You could donate $20, $2,000, whatever you want, whatever you feel that's necessary. But to run for office in such a big county, it takes money to win. The other thing you can do, there's a link on there. You could go to the state Secretary of State and sign my online petition, and that's important too,
Right.
Because you need to have signatures to get on the ballot. Without the signatures, you can have $10 million and you're not on the ballot. So that's how that works. So, all right. I know you just asked me why I wanted to run for sheriff.
Why do you want to run for sheriff?
Okay. It's very simple. I grew up there. I spent 40 years of my life there. I started when I was 18. So my entire adult life and up until the day I had to walk out, which was at that point that was the saddest day of my life. And my wife had to drive me home. I was a basket case. I loved that place. And that's the reason. I love the sheriff's office. I love the people that work there. And I love what they did and do to keep the community safe, to keep people safe. And so I know with my experience, my training, in-service training, I have a master's degree. I don't talk about it a lot because I think I have a PhD in leadership from being in the leadership role for 33 years. And I would give myself one if I could. Because you can't learn about being a leader from a book. There's some concepts in there. But you go out there, you make mistakes, you learn from your mistakes, you watch other people, you learn from their mistakes. Every sheriff that I worked for 4 over those 40 years. Every one of them brought something good to the table. And every one of them didn't do something so good. So I always tried to learn from anybody that I ever worked for, what did they bring good to the table? And then get rid of all the stuff that was not good. And that's how you do it. Right, that's how you do it. And that's how you become a leader. That's how you grow in the organization and as a person. And so when I say I love the sheriff's office, it gave me so much in my life. And I'll tell you this quick story. I tell it a lot. I was a lieutenant. We were working at night in a graveyard shift, and about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we get a call. A guy is going to shoot and kill his wife and kids out in a rural area of the county. And so we get out there, and when we get there, the wife and kids run out the back door, and now he's barricaded in the house. He's going to threaten to shoot and kill us. So we put, the sheriff's tape, the yellow tape, us law enforcement guys, we love to do that. And So it's dark. There's no street lights. There's dirt roads. And I see this woman walking inside the barrier. So I go running over there. I don't grab her, but I tell her, hey, get out of here. Come on with me. You know, you're in the line of fire. And I asked her, what are you doing here? Well, I was looking for my mom. Looking for your mom? Who's your mom? Oh, Deputy Karen. I won't say her last name. And she worked for me. She was on the other side of that house, securing that house. This is before cell phones, so they couldn't call each other. And I wound up marrying that girl. I've been with her for 36 years.
Oh.
She's the mother of my 2 girls. She's the grandmother of my 2 grandkids.
Excellent.
And so you talk about roots in an organization. And so when I walked out of there, my last day there, I never thought I was going to run for sheriff. And until people that worked there started to call me and tell me what's going on, asking me to run for sheriff. And that's when I thought, maybe I should. So I got all this information for months and months, for 10 months, and I get a phone call one afternoon on my back patio, and I've got a nice place there, and I'm looking the horses and the mountains and all this stuff, and just kind of relaxing now that I'm retired, right? I get a phone call from a guy that I really, really respected, and he was a lieutenant, and for 45 minutes, he's telling me everything that everybody else has told me in the last 10 months, and then he starts to cry. And this guy is a hero. He was on the SWAT team, and he was just so emotional about how bad things were getting so quickly. So when I finished the conversation with him, I sat there, I was numb. And I walked in the house, and Stacy's making dinner, and my dad, he's a retired lieutenant NYPD, right? Tough guy, Marine, Korea-era Marine, my hero all my life. And he's sitting there at the table. He was 89 at the time. He's going to be 93 next month, and he lives with Stacy and I. And so I look at Stacy and I says, "Hon, I'm going to run for sheriff." And you know what she said, Alice? She said, "I saw this coming." She knew me. We'd been together so long. We're best friends. She's been, my rock all through this campaign thing, which I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, just so you know. It's a miserable process. And my dad looks at me, and I'm not going to say it because we're on a public broadcast here, but he used a bad word, a very bad word, the worst word, and he says, "Are you crazy? You got your retirement, you've got your horses and photography and you fly fish. Stacy's your best friend. Why the hell would you want to go be the sheriff?" And I said, "Dad, because I love that place and the people that work there and what they do to keep people safe. It's simple."
Stacy is watching you.
She is?
Yep.
Oh.
Stacy is watching.
Uh-oh. I better say something nice about her.
He won't say nothing bad. Well, hi, Stacy.
Great story. And I'm kind of glad that you said that in the closing of the show.
Oh.
Because that was a great way to wrap up everything that you said. And it's going to take strong, wonderful candidates like that to get our world back. Because, living, we got to do something. And I applaud you for doing that, because you don't have to. You don't have to, just like some other candidates, and one that we know. So thank you, Jared. Thank you for running.
Oh,
yeah, thank you. And thank you for being on our show. Will you promise?
Just so you know, I don't promise anything. I don't promise anything I can't deliver.
Will you let us film you when you win? Do a Chips and Salsa show.
Doing what? Oh, okay. Yeah, of course.
I mean, not film.
Yeah.
I meant do a Chips and Salsa show. Okay.
You know what? I would hope that if and when I'm successful in the primary, you'll have me back.
Okay.
Okay.
Eric, Put it on our schedule. He'll be back. Thank
He'll
you for
be
coming
back.
on our show.
Oh,
Jerry.
thank you.
And
Thank you. So I'm glad I ran into you on Saturday. Thank you so much
You're the man.
for having me here. And Alice,
Alice.
we miss you. Arizona misses you. You need to get your butt back here.
and he's gonna make it over there to visit you.
Yeah,
Yeah, come visit.
next
We'll
time
take
I'm doing
Stacy
some
and-
photography over there, you bet I'm gonna.
Yeah, there's some good places to take photography over there, right, Alice?
Oh, yeah.
Good churches.
Excellent, yes. And just real quickly to my New Mexico buddies and anybody actually out there, if you want to support a good conservative sheriff that wants to bring back wonderful ideas and his experience and can do it, you can still send him a few bucks. You don't have to live in Maricopa County.
Right.
Because to support someone good like that helps and benefits our whole country. I really believe that.
And
Thank you.
if you want to chipsters, and if you can volunteer, he may need help in this campaign. Whatever, just contact his website and inquire, because he's going to be a very, very busy. I'm gonna say young man, but he's going to be a very busy candidate for sheriff, and he could use help probably. And
I
hey,
don't want to interrupt, but
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
on that point, there is a link on my website for volunteers, and it asks you what you might like to do. Not everybody wants to go out and knock on doors, but some people can make phone calls and do those kinds of things. So there's a lot of different things that we could help, but obviously the big thing is we need to get the funds to be able to reach people that don't watch your show. And there's a couple I heard, and so we need some money for that, and we also need people to sign our online petition.
And
make a statement.
We've never got this kind of reaction from any of our guests, and we've had guests for how many years now, Alice?
Now, we haven't been doing it live on Facebook here, but yeah, you're right. It blew up the Facebook page. Right on.
But how
That's
many
nice.
years?
Thank you.
We've been doing Facebook for years.
Oh, and that's what we were going to do. We're starting into our 10th year. In October, we'll be doing this 10 years.
Wow.
And we've had all kinds of guests, from Sheriff Joe Arpaio, from you name it, Carrie Lake. I mean, everybody's been on our show, and this is one of the best reactions we've got. He's a good person. He's a good sheriff. He's got a kind heart. He has a heart of a candidate and a person that wants to do a good job for the community. Maricopa County, we need a good sheriff. We need Jerry Sheridan to be our sheriff. So tell your friends and tell them to watch our podcast, and tell them if they can volunteer or they can donate funds to the campaign. This is one of the good ones, people. This is one of the good candidates that we're going to support, and we're going to support them all the way to the finish line. Thank you again for coming to our show. Thank you, Alice from New Mexico. And
Guys, goodbye now.
Bye-bye.
Walk on.
Walk
Good
on.
luck, Jerry.
Thank you so much.